Women Innovators. Interviews with women with big messages and big missions, sharing their stories to inspire you to live your passion and step up to make the world a better place. Here's your host, Tammy Patzer.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Francesca Burack. She is an international speaker and coach who helps professional women stand in their authentic power and advance their leadership from conference room to boardroom. As an advocate for fearless female talent, Francesca also helps corporations develop top-tier teams and robust pipeline of management talent and contributors. She has received awards from the U.S. Small Business Administration, the New York Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Lilly Ledbetter Award, and was a delegate to the White House Conference on Small Business. Welcome, Francesca.
Oh, thank you, Tammy. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful person. And thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you. Well, we met probably about a year ago at the Women's Prosperity Network, and you have a very interesting background, and you're on a really big mission. Can you tell me a little bit more about your big why and your big mission about what you do?
Oh, I'd love to. So, Tammy, I'm really dedicated to helping women short-circuit their learning curve, to claim their value, to communicate effectively in the workplace so their voice is heard. I help them navigate difficult situations, and I help women feel authentic and good while doing all of this. And I got into this, and I wrote a book about this called Women Are Special, 123 Reasons Why. And every time a woman picks up this book, they go, what do you mean 123 Reasons Why? There are so many more. And yes, there are. But this was just the beginning. And I decided to write this book because we women are so busy multitasking, getting things done, moving from one thing to another, that we never stop. The majority of us never stop to really sit still and celebrate all that we do, all that we influence, and all that we are. So I wrote this book, and it's a book. On every page it says women are special, and then there is something there that completes the phrase. Like, women are special because we are compassionate leaders and we get things done. And so I encourage women to really stop and celebrate the wins. Every time something happens and we're ready to go on to that next task, I say, stop. Take 5 minutes. Appreciate what you just did and celebrate it. Have a cup of coffee and just sit still. If it's in the evening, have a glass of wine, have a glass of water, whatever was going to make you feel good, and sit still for 5 whole minutes and just say, wow, look at what I did. Or wow, look at what the team did. And if it's a team effort, I say celebrate with everyone. But really, we have to celebrate all that we do. We do so much. We influence so much. And I really encourage women to pick up that book, by the way. It's on Amazon.
And your book, what's the title again?
The book is Women Are Special, 123 Reasons Why. And by the way, my intention is to write a second edition, and at the back of the book, it tells you how you can contribute to the next edition, whether you want to do it anonymously or have your name in the acknowledgments.
Oh, I like that. That's a really good idea. What I find interesting is 123, 123, but it's interesting because often, and you're absolutely right, there's many more than 123 reasons why women are special. But the fact that you've taken the time to compile that and then to have a second edition where your readers and other women can participate, that is really phenomenal, because that really helps people to realize that they have that opportunity to be heard and seen and acknowledged, and you have a vehicle to help them do that. So can you tell me more about the women you work with and how you help them?
Absolutely. So I work with women in corporations or women leaders of their own companies. And with women in corporations, so very often women are not heard. Every day they go to work, they're not heard, they're not valued. So what I do is I help them with every situation that they come across and how to handle that particular situation. So let me give you an example. Well, let me backtrack a minute. One of the most important keys to success is your ability to communicate with impact and in a way that builds trust and influence. And it's not just starting the conversation, but it's also how to influence the direction of the conversation. And so very often women do not realize how many gifts and talents they have. So what I do is I work with them to uncover those gifts and talents, and then to stand in their power, to really recognize that we are all powerful in our own way, and to stand in that power and take fearless action with heart and conviction, so that you're always coming from a place of your inner soul, and to not be afraid to show that you have a heart, so that when you're communicating with people, it's not, how am I going to get you? But it's, how are we going to work this out together? So it's from that frame of mind. So for instance, if a woman is in a meeting, and very often women in corporations experience this, they propose something during a conversation, and it's like she never opened her mouth. But 5 minutes later, John down the table knows how great that idea was, and he proposes the idea as if it's his own. Now, sometimes women react and say things like, well, I just said that 5 minutes ago. And so that isn't going to get you anywhere. But if you look at John and say, John, I am so happy that you're supporting the idea I presented 5 minutes ago on X, Y, and Z. I'm glad that you want to work on it also. Thank you very much. And if you say that in a way that is not angry or hostile, but in a giving way, you're getting your point across. Everyone in the room knows you already said that. And for them not to have recognized you wasn't appropriate. And so now you presented it in a very calm way, and everyone knows it's your idea and that you're getting credit for it. And by the way, if you are a woman in that room, and normally there's only one, but maybe there's 2 or 3 at that level, or at any level. But if you're a woman in the room and a woman does propose something, it's really important that there's a sisterhood in that room. And that you, if no one else says anything, that you stand in your authentic self and in your power and take fearless action by saying something like, gee, Jane, that was a terrific idea. Can you give us more? Can you explain more about that, or give us an idea about how that would work? And therefore, Jane is supported, and you come out looking like you have the courage to stand up for what you're believing in. And so those are very important things to do and that's just one example of how I help women.
I like that example because it's funny. I used to be a middle manager in a newspaper, and I'll never forget going into this meeting, and there were probably 5 of us. It was me and 4 men. We were all executive editors. Every single one of the men had at the time a Palm Pilot. I had a reporter's notebook and a pen. So that just kind of really showed the difference. And even though I was at that level, I still obviously did not have all of the latest gadgets and tools, because I was making probably $10,000 to $20,000 less than the lowest paid man in that situation. So that is, those are things that now people are starting to recognize. But I really think that's a really good idea that you have about that. So
let me just make a point here. I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's very important for women to look like they're up to date with whatever technology there is. So if you're going into a meeting and because the guys will be handling their technology all day, and the kind of technology they have, and you don't have it, it's important to give up something in your life that you can to make that happen for yourself. And so if I were working with you back then, Tammy, that would be my recommendation.
Is to get up, is even though you may not be, paid as much. And that was very prevalent at the time. I mean, I'm hoping things are better now for other women. But so in other words, you're saying, even if when you're playing at that higher level, you need to play at that level. And if everybody has the latest gadget, I should have had the latest gadget too, because then they see me as an equal then.
Exactly. You have to dress and look the part that you're going for, not to dress and look the part that you're in at the moment.
Right. And at that moment, that made me appear like I was the secretary or the administrative assistant, when in fact I was at the same level as they were. I was an editor.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that is very interesting. And that is a good lesson. And I actually today, of course, I'm probably more sophisticated, obviously, right, because it's been about 10 years since I was in that situation. And you're right. And that is really good advice, to dress the part, and to have to look the part and dress the part, and of course, act the part. And I love the way that you describe a lot of the words. You use words like talent and gifts and being fearless, because it is scary to be an up and coming, person in a corporation or even as an entrepreneur, because if you've never done it before, you need guidance. So that's part of what you do with people is you work with them on a regular basis to help them become who they're meant to be.
Yes, exactly. So we all have these hidden talents, and sometimes we're just not in touch with them. And so I work with my clients to uncover these talents, and even people that already have talents and they know that they have them, they may be afraid to use them and to appear vulnerable or to appear not knowing something. And so I work with people, and what I do is I work with women primarily, but I do work with men. But we have a lot more challenges. There's so much unconscious bias that we experience on a daily basis in our lives, not just in the workplace. So what I do is I help women work with what they have, identify what it is that they do have. I use a 5-step process. We look at where they want to go, what they want to accomplish, what are the skills that they have, what are those that they need, and we develop a plan that they can implement immediately, a strategic plan to help them move forward. And the other thing I do is I help people reframe and refocus situations, because in the most positive yet realistic way, so that they can see that there are other options open to them. And what appeared to be so insurmountable and such a mountain that one can't even conceive of starting up that mountain is changed into a journey and is changed into situations that they can really succeed successfully in.
I have a question related to wages and money, because one of the most difficult conversations, and I know that I probably failed at more than anything, was not necessarily asking for a promotion, because I was promoted quite regularly, but it was never promotions that included big pay increases. And if I did get a pay increase, they were very small. So I was really big on titles. I had lots of really cool titles. But how do you have that conversation, especially if you're dealing, well, even if it's a female boss or a male boss or anyone in power? Because I remember back when I was young, I went in to ask for a raise, and I was basically told no by the boss, and it was very intimidating because on this man's desk, he had this sign that said, the person who has the gold, like, has all the power or something. And he literally told me that he wasn't going to give me a raise because I had chosen to live in Florida, and my reward was the sunshine.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this was what I dealt with this was in the 80s. And I remember thinking to myself, well, yeah, we do have sunshine, but the wages are so low that you can't afford. At the time, I had to live with my parents because I couldn't afford my own place. And I ended up, over the years of living in Florida in the newspaper business, actually working sometimes up to 3 other jobs besides my full-time job. And I was in middle management. So that tells you how low the wages were in order to make ends meet. So how do you have that conversation? And I'm sure that today he would not be able to say that. That would probably be some type of a issue today. But how do you stand in your power, and what do you say to justify a higher wage when you're asking for a raise? I think a lot of our listeners would really appreciate that information.
Sure. So first of all, I don't just work with people in New York. I work with people, globally, virtually, face to face. So what I highly recommend, and what you must do, is you must know what's going on in your industry. So there are so many online places that you can go to find your industry. You have to know the company if you're already there. You have to make comparisons with the size of your company, with any index that you're looking at, to see how many employees, what the industry is, what the size of the company is, and possibly if you can find out the revenue. And then you know what the going rate is. So when you're going in to ask for a raise or a promotion, you should know what you have done and what you're offering them. So if they're proposing the promotion, or did they propose the promotion, or you were going in for it? Do you remember?
It was probably they promoted me like to move to become a middle manager editor at one of the bureaus at the time.
Okay, so my motto is always be prepared. When you're going to a meeting, you should always be prepared. You should never be stuck because somebody interrupts you. You should always be prepared, and that's another conversation we could have after this one. So you know what the going rate is, even though you have no idea about being promoted or you haven't asked for the promotion. You should always know what's going on in your industry, number one. Number two, you should always have your resume up to date in case something happens and you are asked to go be someplace else for a promotion or just a lateral move. But let's take your situation. So the boss says to you, I want to promote you. Why don't you be your boss and I'll be you for a couple of minutes? How would that be?
Sure.
Okay.
So, hey, there's a editor's position opening up in a city next to us, and I thought that you would be the ideal candidate. Would you be willing to go be the editor, and you'll be working with 10 reporters and photographers in this new location? Would you like to be considered for that promotion?
Gee, Tammy, that sounds really interesting. Of course, I'm always interested in a promotion. Can you tell me more about it? And what would be the process that I would be going through in order to have a promotion?
It's pretty simple. Basically, I just need to know that you're interested in it. And just to let you know, it's a lateral move. So I wouldn't really expect a pay increase at this time, but maybe in 6 months.
Well, that's very interesting because a lateral move is always offers some good opportunities depending on what the responsibilities are. So I would have to know what they are before I could commit. I would also have to have a guarantee that in 6 months, if there is I would really want to know whether or not there is a pay increase, with this move. And then we can talk about what my interests would be, but I'm always open for an interview where I can find out all of this if that information is not available right now. I would not say if you don't have the information. Be very careful because that would make him, if you notice, I almost said that and I stopped myself. So it's very important not to say that because if he doesn't have it, and it sounds like he doesn't, then he's going to be embarrassed if I say, if you can tell me, because I already asked him that before. So you need to be careful. So now I would say, I'm really willing to, go for an interview, find out more about this to see whether or not there is a pay increase. And then we can make a decision as to whether or not I would move. So you notice the words I used. You have to be really, and this is my specialty. This is really my gift. We all have a gift to give to the world, and it's important to share it. And that's why I'm in this business, because one of my gifts is really helping people with communication, to phrase things in a way that helps you get what you want and not put the other person in a defensive mode. Because once we're in a defensive mode, any of us, and feeling attacked, the conversation will not go the way you want it to go. So would that have been a helpful situation for you, that kind of communication where you don't make the commitment and you try to get additional information, and when you can't you set up the environment of how you would proceed? Would that
yes, because what I like is again, you get put into these situations, and I like the idea that even though you're talking to your boss, that you can actually take control of it in a positive way and then make a positive decision. Because in the end, obviously, who wouldn't want to go be the big wig in a city? I mean, if that's your goal, is to climb the ladder. But often, especially in the newspaper business, women have a tendency to only go so high, and then they end up getting stopped, because it's just a tradition in the industry. But I like that. So when you work with people,
excuse me. I'm not sure. I started off by saying, I'm really interested in hearing more about that, because that could be possible. There could be possibilities for me.
Right. So basically, you want to keep the conversation like, oh, that sounds interesting. Tell me more. And obviously the money part. When do you get to the money part in interviews? I've been self-employed now for quite some time. So I'm like, have things changed about the money conversation now?
Yes, never be the first one to bring up the money. The first one that brings up the money loses.
Okay.
So you say, if that's one of your first questions, or the second, the third, early on, it makes them feel like you're only interested in that money, but it also gives them the opportunity to ask you, what are you looking for? So if they offer, so let me just explain two things. Number one, ban the salary history question is a movement in the United States of America. Ban the salary history question from any job process or interview. So we have that passed in New York City that went into effect in October of last year, or was it or April 1st of this year? No, October of last year. So no one can ask you how much you've made, how much you're making in an interview. So corporations can ask you, what are your expectations? And if they're smart, that is the way they would go. And your expectation should be, well, I know in the industry, what is the going rate? And based on my experience, I would expect to be in the top third. And
I like that because I always wondered about that question. It's like, so if I was in, for example, in a low paying state like Florida, and this is a fact, and I was in New York City and they asked me that question, it's like, well, gee, that doesn't even match because the wages structures are different.
And therefore they could offer you like a 20% increase and you'd be thrilled to death thinking that that was a great opportunity, or a 25% increase when the guy next to you is going to be making probably 75% more or whatever.
Right.
So you always want to ask them, if they ask what the expectations are, you could say, well, what is the position offering in terms of compensation? Notice I said compensation, not salary.
Right.
Because
I really like this. And this is a really good scenario because people can get the gist of how you might work with somebody to help them to figure this out. Because like I said, looking back in communications, I'm really good at writing communication, but when it comes to communicating and advocating for myself, I know, the fear it does. You're there and you are asking for a raise or a move, to improve your odds of making more money. And it is a very scary situation. So when you work with people, what do you think are some of the misconceptions they might have about what you offer to them?
Well, sometimes people think I'm going to tell them what to do. My process is I could tell you what to do, and then you can go do it. And what have you learned from me? What have you learned that you're going to be able to continue to use throughout your life? Really nothing. It doesn't serve you right. It serves me right, probably, because then you might have to come back and work with me again for the next process, the next job, the next situation that you run into. But it really doesn't serve me either, because that's not my goal. My goal is not to have you, be dependent on me. My goal is to help you stand in your power. Step into that power. You've got it. You just need encouragement and support. So I do not tell people what to do or what the right path is, but through my 5-step process, I help them think through what it is they really want. I help them build their confidence. I help acknowledge their skills and attributes, and together determine the right path to move forward. This is a process they can continue to use in every area of their life.
I like that because it is, again, like I said, just navigating all of these different things, especially in a job situation or a leadership role, because becoming a leader is something that not everybody aspires to that, but I think most of us do want to be role models and leaders within our, community, both personally
yes.
and in business. And I think that's important. So when you worked with people or had people that needed your services and you have this conversation and then they decide not to work with you, what do you think is that biggest obstacle for most of us about getting this help from somebody like you who can actually help them to reframe and to solve some of these communication issues?
Well, we all have our comfort zone, Tammy, and it could be the most miserable place. I hate my job, but yet we go there every day and we don't move on. And one of these issues is this comfort zone. And there's an expression. It's better to know the devil that you have than the devil. I forgot how it goes. It's better to know the devil that you know than to
Than the devil you don't.
Yes, and the devil you don't, because you might wind up in a worse situation. But I prefer another saying when I work with people and what they experience with me, and that is, life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. That's where your power is waiting for you. And when you step out of that comfort zone, or you push the walls of the comfort zone to make it bigger by allowing you to step into your power, boy, does your life change in the most positive ways. The most positive ways. So always remember, the edge of that comfort zone, you have to step over that edge or push it wider to allow you to stand in your power and take fearless action.
Wow, I love that. Fearless action. That's really important. So if somebody wants to learn more about you, to work with you, how can they do that?
Well, they can go to my website, which is www.fearless, FEARLESS, talent, TALENT, and DEV, short for development, D is in diet, E, V is in Victor.com. And on the home page, on the right-hand side, there is a saying that says, get your fearless attitude. And if you click on that, I invite you to a 1-hour complimentary strategy session where we can work on what it is you're looking to accomplish in your life.
Wow, that sounds really phenomenal. I mean, a whole hour. I mean, think about it. We've been talking for maybe a half an hour or so, and just think of everything that you've already shared with people. So you also speak around the country. Can you talk a little bit more about what your topics are when you speak?
Yeah. So I love speaking. I love engaging the audience. So I have a variety of speaking topics. One is fearless leadership skills for women. The other is engaging millennials in the workplace. I have one is living your life on your own terms. And the other is making the most of your time.
Wow. So making the most of your time, I take it, is about productivity and, of course, engaging millennials. That, I bet that's a popular topic.
Yes.
Because I know that I just read an article the other day. It said, like, right now there are like 4 different generations all working together, and they're all different. And I know from my personal experience, trying to work with some people who are maybe in their 20s, it's like, I'm trying to always figure out, well, how do I work with them to get them to act and to do what I need them to do in a timely fashion, because they were brought up in a totally different way than I was, and the way we operate in the workforce is different. So that would be a really interesting talk. And then, of course, getting more out of your time is another one. And then, of course, women in leadership. All those are phenomenal topics.
The other one is with making more use of your time and living the life that you want. It's really it's not just about productivity, but it's also about your soul. If we don't nourish and nurture our soul, I don't care what you're doing, you are doing such a disservice to yourself. This morning I got up early. I knew I had this interview. I went to Central Park, and let me tell you, the flowers are in bloom. And when I step into that park, it's this oasis in the middle of this chaotic city. And my heart just opens up. and my whole body changes. And my productivity when I get back increases like 100%. So what is it that you need to do to nurture that? So it's a piece of that also in there, but it's a lot about, running your life the way you want to, living on your own terms and making your time count.
That's really beautiful because, like you said, it's not just about business and communication and, the survival of the fittest. Like you said, it's about nurturing your soul and the whole of you, because we all have the personal side of our lives, the business side of our lives, not to mention that we're living in a world where we have the real world and the virtual world that we're trying to mash up. So that's a very interesting. So your website is fearlesstalentdev.com. So fearlesstalentdev.com. And I'll give you just a few last words if you want to sum up anything that we may have forgotten to talk about.
Well, just that, if you want to email me, you can email me also at Francesca, Francesca, at fearlesstalentdev.com. But what I want to say is that I hope that you walk away knowing from this conversation, knowing that there's so much that you have to offer this world. And I'm here to really serve you and to let you know that being vulnerable or being fearful of what you have to offer is something that you can get over, and that we always experience fear in our lives. But how do you turn that fear into fearlessness and make it work for you? That's what I'm interested in helping you do, because you are the most important person in your life. And please don't forget that, because women have a tendency to feel like everyone else is the most important in their life. So I wish you all lots of luck in whatever it is you want to accomplish. And if you want to work with me, I'd be happy to help you do that.
Thank you so much. Everyone, this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day. And remember, just like what Francesca said, you can be fearless in every action you do and have a wonderful life. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Women Innovators with Tammy Patzer. To learn more, please go to womeninnovatorsradio.com. And please do subscribe and share to spread the big messages and big missions to change the world.